We do have a balanced budget requirement. The governor must propose a balanced budget, and the legislature must also do the same.
How is it working so far?
Well, it works as far as the general fund is concerned. So when we talk about the general fund, we're talking about education, health and human services, environmental, those types of things are in the general fund. But we have a lot of things outside the general fund, and over the years, more and more government services have been moved outside the general fund. Transportation is a great example of that. Almost $5 billion a year in North Carolina is spent on transportation, and that is not relevant or falls underneath that balanced budget requirement. So if you remember back in the mid-2000s, Mike Easley, he had a hole in his budget when he was governor. So he would just do a transfer and he'd say, oh, we'll take $500 million from the transportation fund, move it into the general fund, and now we're balanced. That's the problem of today that I'm talking about, that we didn't have those issues in the 1970s, but today the balanced budget requirement is not being honored in its integrity as it was intentioned back then.
It sounds as if we've got different buckets of money, and the balanced budget requirement only applies to one bucket.
That's exactly right.
The other buckets get to do whatever they want.
Yep.
So what is the answer then?
Well, really, the balanced budget requirement is great, and it does work to a point. I think we also need to incorporate something called a taxpayer bill of rights, or a TABOR. And what I mean by that is capping spending. And a lot of the TABORs people say should just apply to the general fund. But my argument is, why don't we apply this to the entire budget of North Carolina? So it would include transportation, all those buckets of money that you were talking about. And that way, even if we're not going to be adding to the debt because we're limiting or capping our spending.